Tansi, hello, Anin. My name is Rihkee, and I am a full-time self-employed multidisciplinary artist and arts administrator. I'm recording this while in Bawating, the territory of the Batchewana Garden River and Sioux Tribe Anishinaabe, the Missinaba Cree, and Great Lakes Métis. So I want to touch on a few subjects, including how to determine your rates or the rates of artists that you may be hiring, including some advice about the negotiation of wages, and just some advice that I wish I had when I was starting out in this self-employment journey 2 years ago. So visual artists, we are lucky. We have this national organization called CARFAC, CARFAC. I'm a member. And they have on their website a fee schedule calculator. So it has various scenarios in which an artist would be employed, and it will generate a minimum standard fee for that labor. So this is the minimum. So if you're just starting out, you just graduated, that would be the rate you're using. If you have 10, 15 years experience, you'd be adding to that. As well, there's different things that entrepreneurs and freelancers have to budget for that a staffed employee would not within their wage. So as a entrepreneur or freelancer, the technology you're using is often your personal computer or your personal phone. So a piece of your wage should reflect that you're reinvesting in that technology, because if your computer or your laptop dies, you need to buy a new one, because that's a key tool within your business. So that should be reflected in your wages. Now there's different ways that different funding works, especially when it comes to creating budgets and determining rates for yourself. So a key example of this is if you are applying to the Ontario Arts Council for a project, whether it's a visual arts project or a socially engaged arts project that's delivering outcomes for a community. There's this general rule that if you are an emerging artist, you're looking at paying yourself in between $1,000 to $1,500 per month for the length of your project. And the $1,500 range usually comes in if you are supporting a family. So if you're a mother or a father, or you're providing care to someone else that you're supporting, then you would choose this higher number and also reflect that within your application. If you are mid-career or an established artist, you can go higher to around $2,000 to $2,500 if, again, you're providing care to people. So these are just standard rates that I've noticed by sitting on juries and looking at the budgets of applications. I've also had the pleasure of volunteering with Laidlaw and working for the Ontario Trillium Foundation's Youth Opportunity Fund. And it's always been a concern of theirs, especially because their programs are focusing on projects and programs created by youth specifically, that you're not underpaying yourself. Do research on whatever market you're in. Find out what people are charging in your area. If you're from a kind of lower income community like Sault Ste. Marie, where I'm living right now, where our medium income is $23,000, you obviously have to kind of adjust your expectations if you're working with local partners. But if you are working in a community that can provide it, you want to ask for a living wage. You never want to position yourself below the poverty line and put yourself at risk when you're taking a job. And like I said, organizations and foundations like Laidlaw and the Youth Opportunities Fund, they don't want to see you underselling yourself, and the OAC for that matter. they don't want to see you giving yourself a precarious wage. That does not give you a stronger application, just so you know. As far as negotiation goes, that Carfax fee scheduler comes in handy because, number one, if someone's trying to underpay you, you have an organization that's supporting that this is the minimum standard that they can provide you, and it's a living amount as far as I've learned so far. As well, Carfax, if you are a member, which is $80 per year, they also have different legal services. So if there's different things you need to contest with a client potentially. But back to negotiating. So I'm going to use a couple examples to talk about that. The first one was I was hired by an employment agency to create a mural, and they didn't do their market research, and they wanted to pay me $200 to facilitate this community mural, and then they had allocated $1,000 to materials. So we were in a good position where the grant funding that was supporting this project was malleable in the sense that we could move the really large amount of money from the materials budget to support raising my wage. So if you think, 4 days of preparation to create, and design this mural and prepare the surface and outline the pieces for the community to then fill in, that's a lot of labor. So $200 wasn't going to cut it. But in that scenario, I'm also negotiating the fees before the work is done. Generally, it's a huge faux pas to ask for more money after you've done the job. You should know upfront what is needed. There are rare situations, though, where you end up doing a lot more labor than anticipated. And if you can make a strong case for that negotiation, and when you make a strong case, you're also confident in that presentation, then there are scenarios where you can renegotiate a wage after the project has been complete. So for me, an example of that is I was doing an illustration job for a very large foundation, and because I'm an Indigenous artist who paints in the woodland style, I had to do consultations with my community regarding whether the images I was using, which were also co-created with the organization that I was working with to create these images for this foundation, to make sure that they were appropriate, because this isn't being used in a spiritual context or an art context for that matter. It's being used by a large foundation. So those extra consultations take time, not just my own time, but also the people that I'm consulting with. And so I really wanted to give something back to the people I was consulting with. And the organization, the partner that I was working on this project, was incredibly understanding. So although it was an uncomfortable conversation, I was able to renegotiate the wages to be higher so that I could provide something to those people that contributed to the project. As far as advice goes regarding things I wish I knew before I started being self-employed full-time is Canadian pension plan. You have to pay CPP yourself when you're not employed by someone else. So at the end of my first year of starting this business, I had to pay like $500 into CPP, which I wasn't anticipating. I have to admit I'm not a pro when it comes to taxes. I usually get someone else to do it. So that's just something to prepare for, is that there are extra costs that you are taking up as an individual when you no longer have that support of that employer. That also includes taxes. So it's my understanding that once you hit 30,000 in income, you are required by law to start paying taxes on that income. Now, if you hit that $30,000 mark, let's say at the end of the year, in December, then you still have to pay taxes on all of your income leading up to that within the whole year. So it's always good to, if you can't do it yourself, like find a mentor, find some help. Do some financial projections of what your income will be. So if you see your business when you're just starting out going to be reaching that 30K mark, to be prepared and charging taxes immediately and registering your number so that you can charge taxes. Well, I hope that this was helpful, and thanks for listening.